Pam, you want to go ahead and take attendance?
Sure. Michael Gore,
Here.
Robert Romer,
Here.
Michael Lau,
Here.
Eric Nyland,
Here.
Austin Groner,
Here.
and it looks like Jim Barr is absent. So Michael Lau, associate member, will be standing in as a voting member of the planning board this evening.
Okay. First item on the agenda is a site plan review for a large detached accessory dwelling unit for 21 Harris Farm Road. Do we have a representative for the applicant here? Mr. Palema?
Yes, I'm here.
Nope. Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm not really great with these things, so
Oh, no
patient.
worries. So,
I'll-
Pam, I don't know. Yeah.
I'll just start with the site plan. Did it grab the right one?
No, it's got your email there. So this is our first large detached accessory dwelling unit under the new bylaw. And this is for 21 Harris Farm Road. Mr. Palema, you want to give us just a quick overview? This is a existing garage that you're converting into an ADU?
Yes, an existing detached garage, converting to the upstairs to a large ADU. It's just over 900 square feet.
Okay.
I think it says the measurements on the bottom of the plan that's on the screen. That's the measurements I came up with respect of how they're asking for the measurements interior of exterior walls. I have, I don't know if you want to talk about the measurement or what you want to talk about. That's pretty much the layout. There will be a closet in the bedroom that's not on there. Other than that, that's the layout.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a site plan review. So we kind of want to just cover things like, what are the entrance, the driveway entrance to it, how many people are going to be there, that sort of stuff. Because
So
this is an existing structure.
Yes, so this is the
Yeah.
existing structure on the screen, right? So there is a driveway that's on the left, comes in from the left from my shared driveway on Harris Farm Road. I
Mhm.
share a driveway with the odd numbered houses.
Yep.
And this driveway just goes to this garage, detached garage where I work out.
Okay. So existing driveway already there.
Yep.
No. Yep.
A parking, there'll be a designated parking area. You don't see it in this. It's going to be on the back rear side. It's not on this photo. It might be on the third photo.
And can you switch to one of the
Yep.
other photos there? And are you keeping it as a garage? Will the first floor remain a garage?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the second photo. That's driving into it. Yep. That's my lot. Really not on that plan.
No,
It's
right
right.
here.
Yeah, right about there. Yep. Right where the AC is.
Yep. And there's a second driveway that feeds that.
Yep.
Okay. And Pam, any concerns about anything with it? Looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty straightforward. It's an existing building, so there's no exterior construction going on, and the driveway's already in place. And there's no second egress onto a public way. It's off of a common driveway, so we really don't have any concerns.
Yeah. Anyone else on the board have questions or comments?
Nope.
Sorry if I missed it. Is this sharing a septic and a well with the main building?
It is sharing somewhat like a half a septic system. So it has its own holding tank or dual compartment, 2,000 gallon tank. that gets pumped up to my D box of my main house and put into the leaching field of my main house.
Got it.
And it does share the well of my main.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Not here.
Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the site plan review for the large detached accessory dwelling unit for 21 Harris Farm Road.
Seconded.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Michael Lau.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, good luck with the construction.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion of housing choice designation and housing production plan 2026. So Pam, I think you put a bit about this in the email. Do you want to review that?
Or I have just have this to share. So currently, Bolton is a housing choice community, which means we satisfied certain criteria identified by the state. That designation is good for 5 years. It provides you with bonus points for grant programs and allows you to some additional housing grants offered through EOHLC. Our designation expired in May of 2025 this year, and we were not eligible to reapply because of 2 mandatory criteria, one of which we didn't meet. And that's a provision of allowing multifamily housing by right without a special permit in our zoning in town. And we do not allow that type of residential construction in town, so we were not eligible to submit an application. I did speak with people in the office. They clarified that they will be considering 2-family units as multifamily under this program only. So if we were to change our zoning and allow for something like a duplex attached, which is also attached single family by right, then that would be make us eligible to become a housing choice community for 2026.
Pam, would that cover an entire zoning district or could we use an overlay?
It doesn't matter. It just has to be by right
Okay,
somewhere in town.
I take it cottage. Well, cottage is special permit anyway. This has to be by right, huh?
It has to be by right. So site plan would qualify, but we're not allowed to require a special permit.
So what do we lose by not having the designation?
There are there's a certain grant program provided through the state, which is only available through the Housing Choice Communities program. So we would not be eligible to apply for those those grant programs. However, we would be able to apply for funding to assist us with the creation of zoning, which would satisfy the criteria. And that's the only item which prohibited us from becoming a designated community. And that new eligibility requirement was only released in late March. So we didn't really have time to get anything in for the annual Maytown meeting, and we weren't the only community. So they just suggested we try for next year.
Grant money for what though in particular? Like I'm still trying to understand what we would get out of it.
Affordable housing, various affordable housing projects.
Do we what do you say? I mean, 40B? I mean, we already
No, not 40B. Plan if we had a town-owned lot and we want to construct affordable housing project, you could apply for design money. You could apply for construction, that type of thing.
Have we used it in the past for anything?
I haven't found anything that we've used it for.
I don't remember using. I mean, I know the Green
But I can't say
Communities
that.
Act we used a lot from, but I don't remember anything from this.
So for instance, if we had like a town-owned lot, like I think we do on Green Road, or maybe we sold it, I don't even know what we did with that one. Not Green Road, Golden Run Road, I meant. And we wanted to build like a duplex, like we could apply for grant money, being in this to like design the house or something potentially.
Yes. Design and construction, yeah. There are other
So we-
programs that offer that type of service as well, but that one's, there is this one program which is exclusively restricted to housing choice communities.
Hey Pam, a related question. We had talked earlier about where money would go from a developer into the Affordable Housing Trust in lieu of.
Mhm.
Where do we stand and what might we do to make the Affordable Housing Trust more of a viable entity?
There, we'd have to have a Affordable Housing Trust Committee formed to vote on utilizing the funds.
And at the moment, we don't have one, right?
No, it hasn't been active,
We used to
if at
have
all.
An affordable,
Yeah.
we definitely used to have an affordable, a board. I remember someone previously from the planning board was on that. The Affordable Housing Trust, yeah.
But we don't currently have one, right?
No, we haven't had one for a number of years.
So maybe one of the initiatives for this year is to get that in place so that we will at least have an organization that could do some planning.
Yeah, we have approximately, I think it's around $310,000 in the account.
Well, it's not insignificant and we're more to be added. So what does it take to appoint an affordable housing trust?
It was already, you have to vote to form one at town meeting, and that was done quite some time ago, so it really just has to, I think it consisted of 7 members. Some at
We need to go
residents,
find them, right?
yeah, we just have to
And
find
then the select
volunteers to
board
be on.
appoints them, or do we?
Well, they have to be a part of it.
So
We still
what-
may have people that were part of that. Again, they just haven't had anything to do for a number of years. But I'm sure we had an affordable housing trust group of people.
It's been at least 10 years, I think. We're part of the affordable, the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium, but I haven't found any sort of recent evidence that the trust has met anytime recent.
Yeah. But back to this, I mean, the question for us is, are we going to try to add in multifamily zoning as a bylaw?
It's something we
Right,
have
I
to
mean,
think about, and
that-
to coincide
whether
with
it's-
that, our housing production plan is expiring in May of 2026. So we are applying for grant funds to update that plan. The Metropolitan Area Planning Council is helping us create a scope of work and budget, which we'll be submitting to the One Stop State program, grant program for funding to update our plan. And that can certainly be part of our analysis as we work on that.
So over and
Okay.
above a consultant, does that in itself require a small committee?
And for the zone change
No,
or the housing plan?
the housing production plan.
Yeah, historically, a housing committee has been formed.
Yeah, and that's up on the web right now,
on
right?
it. I was on it last time, but that was just like 5 years ago. It only lasts 5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're only good for 5 years.
Oh.
Then you have to update them.
That was a lot of work for 5 years. Should be pretty good though. Couple of graph updates.
Yeah, it's just updating a lot of demographic and building permit data, really.
but Pam, that was primarily the reason that you're pursuing a grant to have that capability available?
Yes,
Would this
we'll
person
do it
also-
anyway, but it'd be a lot better if we could hire a consultant and get more GIS information and the plan would be more in depth.
Speaking for the
Housing
master
production
plan, I
plan,
couldn't
you
agree
mean.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sam,
I
you're,
have a
you're
quick
talking about a
question. Would-
consultant for the housing production plan, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
we qualify for the housing choice designation. That's the only criteria that we couldn't check off, and that's a mandatory one.
What does that mean? It's mandatory as part of
Yeah.
your housing production plan?
Nope, to be a housing choice community, you have
Oh,
to
I
have
see.
two required things. One's multifamily zoning, which we didn't have, and the other is property tax relief for seniors, and we did provide that, so.
Do any of our neighboring communities allow multifamily by right?
I don't remember, I looked at that when we were evaluating the cottage overlay, so I'd have to revisit that.
Yeah.
I know Boylston does, so I'd have to check again.
Amesbury does too, for what it's worth.
What was that,
I
Austin?
had, Amesbury also does,
yeah.
by right as well.
Yeah.
Would they work with us? Could this dovetail into our economic development plan? Like, would they take a look at our master plan and work with us, on these affordable housing options such that they fit into our plan?
I think they'd
The
probably be
consultant.
separate.
Okay. Yeah,
Depends
I feel they,
how each are pursued.
yeah, I feel
Eric,
like it'd be part of a larger
how long did
strategy.
you work on the housing production plan, Eric? And what was the scope of that? Just where to,
It was definitely probably like 10-ish meetings. It was me, I think Brian Boyle was on it.
yeah.
Yes.
O'Hagan was on it. Maybe a couple of other people.
Patty Durkin was on it.
Their
Yeah,
names
Tanny,
are
that's
on the
right.
plan, on the front cover,
Yeah.
all the participants.
Yep. Yeah, it was a fair amount of work, but I think it's in pretty good shape where maybe it is just a matter of, adding some extra sections and demographics and stuff.
And so is there enough work for us to get a grant and
Oh, yeah.
have someone
Yeah.
update that for the housing
Well,
production
something we
plan?
can even consider as part of that would be creating another residential zoning district where maybe there's higher density allowed for duplexes. It doesn't have to be all or nothing for the residential zone, which is how we've historically treated it. We can separate that and create higher density allowances around the center of town.
Yeah, that was my thought, to localize it.
Yeah, and you can't restrict the number of bedrooms or the age, so they wouldn't consider a 55 and over
Yeah.
housing development to satisfy their criteria.
I mean, it's really just single lots by right. Right, that's all this would apply to, because I mean, it can't be a subdivision because that's all handled by special permit.
No, you can't
Right.
require subdivisions by special permit. So if someone chose to do a conventional subdivision and we
I see.
created this duplex zoning to be allowed by right, they could build the duplexes within the subdivision.
I see.
Um,
It's just if it was phosphid. Yeah.
I could see that being difficult. Like if there was like a zone within the residential zone, that would probably be more palatable, I guess.
Yeah, I still don't know where a good practical place to put that would be. I mean, we obviously don't
Probably
need to.
Main Street. Main Street.
that?
I mean, some of those houses
Yeah.
are kind of multifamily already anyway.
But there's no lots where people are building new houses that would all
Yeah.
apply to.
Well,
It would
you
allow
could
for conversions.
conversions, yeah. Yeah, I guess we'd have to think about where we'd want it, I guess.
And I mean, at this point, like, this is our first meeting after town meeting, so we haven't even
Mhm.
really sort of set what our agenda is. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
I think that's actually our next agenda item is, what are our tasks for the upcoming year? So I think this just sort of fits into that, but
Right.
so this is more of an FYI that we're gonna lose access to some grant money unless we make at least some zone by right for multifamily.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I mean, so let's kind of get into the what we want to do for this upcoming year. I think Pam, you sent out the
Yeah,
the
that
list
was a
from the master
partial list
plan.
of the implementation table. I deleted items that were not planning board assigned,
Yeah.
just to make it shorter.
And the things in green is what we just passed.
Yeah, let me just pull it up. Yeah, and then yellow are things related to the housing production plan, which,
Sorry, green is just planning board stuff, is that, or
no, everything in the list is planning board.
can you bring up this
Yeah,
document?
Can you bring a list up?
Yeah, sorry, I had trouble opening it. Here we go. So green are things that creating and passing the cottage overlay district and updating the phosphid satisfied. So they were completed. We can always do more, but it satisfied completing those goals. And then I highlighted yellow things related to housing production, which we are going to work on in this coming year.
So like 2.2.2 is multifamily zoning. So is that,
Well, we allow multifamily zoning by special permit in the cottage overlay.
okay,
It just doesn't meet the housing choice criteria because it's not by right.
I see.
And I wouldn't suggest allowing that one by right. It allows too high of a density to not have discretionary approval over it.
I mean, we've talked about this in the past about like, duplexes that resemble single family houses, with maybe like one entrance on the side and the other one in the front. And I think the house in front of a moderator way kind of is designed that way, sort of, that became affordable. But it seems like there's definitely been kickback in town about allowing like duplexes throughout the town. So
We
definitely
don't have to be a housing choice community. It's really, but something we should definitely at least
Yeah.
investigate.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think we just have to like, think about, like, I think Bob brought it up, whether we have a residential 2 zone and a residential 1 or something. I've seen other towns have multiple different types of residential zones,
I mean, the other thing is Pam, I assume that allowing duplexes would certainly qualify under the you only need 50% because it affects housing production, right? For a zoning bylaw change, we'd only need 50% approval for
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like that.
yes. I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah.
The majority approval at town meeting. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really is a game changer in what we can, like I would be much more willing to bring forward a multifamily zoning bylaw now if we only need majority. And I think we sort of saw the arguments that people were making for anyone who was at town meeting. I mean, it started with first, a lot of people who were against the override complained about the cost of housing and how everything is so expensive anyway. And the only way we're going to get that down is to, build more housing in town. And so cottage overlay hopefully helps with that a little bit, and multifamily, that would also help with it. So I mean, I think we can make that argument to people that, look, if you think the town is unaffordable, here are some things we can do to try to address that. And if we only need 50%, then I feel like you don't get, kind of the angry mob mentality where they stop it when you need it 2/3.
Well, I should think that developers and contractors would be interested in multifamily as well, simply because the price of their cost advantage per unit.
Yeah.
Can we also add incentivizing constructions of ADUs as well? There's
Right.
I think I brought it up a couple months ago, was MGL Chapter 59, Section 50,
Mhm.
which it basically reading from the law here, just authorizes municipalities to establish property tax exemptions for residential properties that have those ADUs on them. So I think that that's something that other towns in the Berkshires have been doing, and I think that's another thing that can be added to the list.
Do we just need to adopt that law, Pam?
I'm not sure.
Because those sorts of things aren't even zoning changes, right? That's just,
No, they would have to go to town meeting as I think, a general warrant article.
and so are you familiar with that? Does that just mean you don't pay property tax on the ADU?
I think it's basically a little bit more than that. So you get a little bit of a discount, I think, on the, actually, before I speak out of line, I actually will take another look at it, but
Yeah.
it's either you don't pay the extra property tax for that ADU, or there is some small, property tax exemption, I think, on the main building as well. I don't know exactly what it is offhand.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great. And if it's just adopting a mass an MGL, then I'd certainly be up for looking into that.
Out of curiosity, how many ADUs do we have in Bolton? Is it, are we talking about 100 or less
We're talking about 9.
Yeah. Is
in
that
total?
including
Okay.
tonight's?
Yes, including tonight's.
And we've had 2 in the last couple weeks, so that's, to start.
Mhm.
I mean, so, I don't know if sort of what we want here is to look through, the master plan and figure out where we want to, attack things this year, or if people just have thoughts in mind about what they want to do this year.
I'd like it to take a look at our use table and zoning districts. I think we need to create updated uses. The uses are very general and hard to kind of categorize everything that comes into one specific area.
Are there you mean things that we don't currently allow or that aren't,
Or it's just not clear. There's just very general categories like all retail, all it's hard to classify, and then there are certain things that don't fit anywhere, so then you have to say they're not allowed.
okay. And what was the second one you mentioned?
The
Besides the use
zoning
table?
districts, like we talked about with the residential zoning districts, and maybe take a look at our mixed use areas, because like you said, no one's been utilizing that.
Yeah.
Well, I
Anyone
guess
else?
it's probably off the topic, but I'd be very, very interested in looking at being proactive about economic development, both at the east and west end of town on 117. We've had a number of conversations about that. The only area that the master plan looked at with any seriousness was a focused area review of the intersection of 495 and 117, the southwest corner. And that was primarily focused on the potential municipal uses. But I think it would be very useful to do a more detailed analysis using the same approach and procedure in both the east end of town on the industrial land, with thoughts about potentially making it, allowing different things there that would generate tax revenue, and then looking at a somewhat decentralized area in the intersection or around the intersection of Forbush Mill and Main. You know, we're already looking at, or we will be looking at a mixed use area there, but I think I don't know enough about everything that's there, what the potential uses are, how we might want to change the districting there, the zoning, so that it would encourage thoughtful economic development. But I think it'd be very useful to start developing a more detailed and better perspective on both of those areas and become more proactive working with the EDC in pursuing economic development.
There was a economic development analysis completed along Route 117 in 2022 that had some good information in it on it
Yeah, that
Um,
was very good. I mean,
in terms of
Yeah.
uses and what our draw would be from the region.
yep. And we
Tim,
need to
could
be
you
very realistic about that. You know, it's one thing to want to have stuff and another thing to be able to attract things with the appropriate amenities, access, all the rest of the things that are important to that type of development.
And the Metropolitan Planning Council has also started, they're starting an analysis or study working with rural communities that don't have access to water and sewer. So they're starting to get everyone together and discuss kind of well, we all know what the issues are, but what are possible scenarios and zoning uses that could kind of work with the fact that there's no water, sewer, and what type of development we can kind of propose and
Yeah, and that's part and
change our
parcel.
zoning to meet.
You know, I don't think we need to think about a town-wide water district or a town-wide sewer district. We can think about regional sewer and public-private collaboration in doing that at both ends of town, both from public water supplies and then, you know, I wouldn't say package plants, something bigger than that. That would be part of a development scheme, or, boy, dare I say this, a redevelopment scheme in the case of the former Genrad properties.
Which ones are the Genrad properties?
Those are on the north side of Main Street at the far eastern end of town. The big brick buildings.
Paragon,
Yep,
Paragon, those places. Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking was like, I mean, really, our existing business stock is pretty full at this point. I mean, maybe not those buildings, like those buildings probably nowhere near capacity, but you know, we now have tenants in the Cobham and Atlantic Microwave factories. The environmental pool seems like it's, you know, pretty well filled up at this point. So I mean, that's all good news that like the first thing we got to do is make use out of the buildings that we have
yep.
before we, you know, consider, you know, where do we want to zone for people to build new buildings.
And I think would be worthwhile, Mike, in getting together with the EDC and meeting with the owners, particularly of the existing structures on the east end of town, and look at the amount of space they have.
Yeah.
Having been involved in the past with that, it's pretty awe-inspiring what you could potentially do with good architects and a good economic development consultant.
Yeah, it's a big space over there for sure.
Pam, would you mind sharing that 2022 study? I think that you mentioned.
That was
It's
the Main
under,
Street study?
yeah, it's under planning board studies. Let me, just give me 1 second and I'll share it.
If it's on the site, I can find it.
Planning board plans and studies.
All right, thank you.
And it was basically an evolution of the one that was done in Stowe. But it has some fascinating statistics about traffic and people who leave town and what they go to get, and how much of that could be captured in town from an economic development perspective.
It's 50 pages long.
Yep, it's a very good document, very
So
detailed.
at the last EDC meeting, we did start to reach this topic about, working with the planning board, looking at the studies that are there and seeing what else needed to be researched, to continue that work, what should go in what area, looking at the zoning. So this is kind of why I brought up the Tadmore. I don't know if we jump into that. I guess we're kind of all talking about the same thing right now. But I think we're all in agreement that allowing the overlay to be included in the Tadmore business property there would actually not be a good thing, because it's one of the only areas that are fully zoned business. So to
Yep.
give up a bunch of that business footprint for residential, I think would be a mistake. So I think if the adding the overlay came up to our board, I would probably personally vote against it. And I know that the developer has been great, and it would be easier for him to put in residential there, because he did state that, adding a bunch of business is difficult, which I understand, but I'm personally not willing to give up the little bit of business zone land we have for residential.
But it's mixed use though. I mean, it is business and residential.
Yeah, but
right?
your overall
You have to
footprint of
have business on the first floor and then
Yeah,
residential above it, right?
but like the amount of business, goes down. I don't know. Like I just would want to look at it more. I'd
I would
rather
want to
not-
know how much the business would go down, because the way I think it was crafted was where the businesses had to be on the first floor. To me,
Mhm.
that seems like you should be able to maintain a lot of the same business,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, I'd like to look at the numbers. I'm just not excited to jump at it. We do have a lot of residential, especially with the apartments coming in. So I'm not feeling like it's kind of similar housing is all I'm saying to
Well,
that.
I'd like to look at the whole area.
Yeah,
that's-
so that was our point. Our point was that Tadmore property, Frank Chiodo's property, the spa there, like, look at the whole thing and how could we zone or, redo the zoning to incentivize multiple businesses to develop there. I'm not as excited for more residential in that area. Also, a big thing we talked about, which is a huge bite, is the DPW moving somewhere. So we, that whole, because that's kind of like the gateway to that side of Bolton, and to come in and the DPW just being like right out in the front is kind of ridiculous, I think. So whether it moved to the transfer station or somewhere closer to 495, I know that's a ton of money involved to do that. That's something we should look at, but like you said, Bob, looking into the entire area and how we can best utilize it moving forward. And I'm not convinced personally that more housing there is the best option.
Well, I guess I don't know,
Yeah.
and I'd like to learn more. But
Well,
Pam,
yeah,
you
yeah.
have access to the procedure and all of the information that we developed for the focused area review of the southwest corner of 495 and 117, right?
For which property?
It was,
The
it was,
warehouse?
no, it
Oh.
was the corner towards town on the south side of 117 from 495. So it went over to Wattaquatic, around South Bolton, and then back up 495. It was that um, trapezoid, describe it roughly as.
Like where the
Could you pull
Memorial
that up on
Field
a map?
is and
I
that,
don't know.
that whole area, Bob?
I'm sorry, say again?
Like where Memorial Field
Yes.
and behind
Yep.
the school, that whole area?
Yeah, that whole
Is-
area.
Was,
And again, the intent then was there was a lot of discussion about the development of the apartments and trails and town land and the sewage treatment facility, et cetera. And nobody was able to figure out, how it all fit together and what the best and highest and particularly municipal use of that land would be. So we did take a look at the environmental limitations with wetlands. We looked at ownership. We looked at zoning. We looked at existing structures, et cetera, and overlaid all of that. And it was very, very informative about opportunities and limitations of that whole area. And I think, and it took a fair amount of putting together GIS information, but it was all laid out and overlaid. So you could use various layers to look at it different ways. Oh, and it went into potential septic, it went into the existing public water supplies and limitations on that. There are a whole bunch of things that people really weren't aware of, particularly as they related to each other. So
What
it
was,
would be
sorry, what
much
was,
easier, I think, at the west
yeah.
end of town.
what was
I
the end
haven't
goal of
seen
that though? I
that.
mean, that is, I mean, that's such just pure residential area other than the fields in the school. Like what is the thought to put more housing back there or, I mean, not
Well,
businesses, right?
the initial thought was to your earlier point about, well, what are we going to do about the DPW? Is there area there for the DPW? Are there potential compatible municipal uses for that land? Suffice it to say, it really didn't go anywhere. The information was developed. The development of that land was done, but no further conversation went up. And it was to be very much a public-private partnership. The Slades have all that land behind the town land. They were interested in having a conversation about how that could be developed or used. But again, it's kind of frozen in time, and I think even that would be worthwhile going back and taking a look at. But again, it's not really now about economic development of that area, but the same approach could be used with different intent to look at the east and west end of town.
Okay. There's obviously Kane property. I mean, they came to us. I don't know
Yep.
if that was last year or the year before.
Multiple times.
With the warehouse. So I mean, I don't know if we want to try to get a handle on, again, I sense they were frustrated. They came to us with a proposal that, I mean, it seemed strange to me that they thought we were going to love that, but
That was directly behind the country cupboard, is that right?
yep,
Yeah.
that whole parcel
Okay.
back there.
Okay.
So there's, I mean,
think-
there's a couple of issues
Well-
with that about split zoning and ledge and all sorts of stuff there.
But I think we ought to, very much the way we rethought the phosphid in sequence. I would like to see us learn a lot more about areas in Bolton in which we would like to see economic development and understand them thoroughly and be able to provide a perspective to potential developers as opposed to react to developers coming in on a piecemeal basis.
Yeah, for sure.
I-
I definitely, I always
Yeah.
say that, in Bolton, we're super reactive and not proactive at all. I probably said that a million times, so I'm definitely all for digging deep into all these areas and really figuring out how we can best utilize them, what would, kind of work in town. I know you can't pick and choose, but, you could make the zoning favorable to kind of what you want, so.
But I
To
think
your
if we
point, I
start with,
would,
go ahead, Mike.
yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
would say I would pick one or two of the areas.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean,
When I said pick and choose, I meant like business. like-
yeah, how we zone it, but sure, I mean,
Yeah.
if we do a deep dive, I mean, it seems like, over by Forbush that's as good a place to start as any, because.
Yes.
Right, and if we do kind of a deep dive on that to understand what does the zoning look like right now, let's get a clear understanding of it. Who are the owners? And then, I don't know if we want to have conversations with some of those people to say, what are your thoughts about, things to put on the business, or like more to the point, Eric, like what zoning changes would we make there to encourage
I
things?
wonder
mean,
for that particular area, if we could gang it all up somehow, and maybe this is Board of Health and too. If somehow we could create some zoning that would allow for shared infrastructure between the different lots,
You can do
shared-
that now.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay.
But what-
well,
I
good.
mean-
Done.
It's that
I mean, that's
easy.
because, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened at the Pampered Pop. I've already forgotten the name of it. I feel bad.
Yeah.
Posh Pop.
Posh pub.
Posh Pop.
But
That one, right?
yeah,
I mean, they're sharing infrastructure, and
Mhm.
or no, I think they had enough stuff separate, but they could have shared infrastructure. They just had to show it on their plans.
But in overall, like, it's multiple owners in that area, contiguous space. Like, how could we gang it up and make it more advantageous to like develop businesses in that area? If there's something we can do to help that along.
and
Yeah.
in the case of the first one that we took a crack at, again, a pilot, we did have conversations with individual private owners. And that's how the Slades got involved. And gee, we got a lot of land out and back there. A lot of it is pretty wet, but a lot of it isn't. And are there things we could do jointly that make sense in that area? But first, we need to know what the limitations are, who owns what the zoning is. And that's where we were coming from. Before we get proactive about rethinking zoning and promoting development, we really need to understand those areas
Sure.
in
Yep, for sure.
substantially more detail.
Which lot is the post office on? Is that on either 7 or 8 or 9? On this map?
I think it might be like 6, because I think it might be 6, because 6 is the spa and the spa is behind it.
Yep, yep. Okay.
So I don't know how that works. Maybe it's 4. I don't know.
But I mean, if we look in that whole area down,
Right.
on the Taggart land, is spoken for, frankly, at this point. But down at the town land, what's up to the top of the sand hill there, and think about access, physical limitations of the land, et cetera, and start thinking about, gee, what fits best in there with due consideration for the challenges that we're going to be faced with the roundabout of that Four Corners area.
And who owns lot number 4 there?
I'm not sure if that's.
Is that the
might be the
solar
per-
field?
Or it's that realtor place right there.
Yeah,
And that's, what is that
It's-
zone? That's zone limited business? It looks like half limited business.
Yeah, it looks like it runs through the parcel.
What is WCOD?
The wireless
I-
overlay.
Oh, okay. So what's the?
I don't know why it's there.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. These parcels with the overlay, but
But
I
what's
assume
the,
there's,
so it's the same, the limited business zone is the same as the red, it's just.
The red shaded parcels are business, and then the
Okay.
blue shaded parcel is limited business.
Oh, I got it. Okay. And I forget
I was more
the,
referring to
I
that.
forget the intricate details, the difference. Like one is, yeah, like you said, Pam, it's kind of confusing. Like, what's the difference between limited business and business?
There's just a few uses that
Yeah.
aren't allowed in the limited,
Yeah.
and
So
they're
in
all
any
by
case-
special permit. All the uses in business and limited business are special permits.
Yeah.
So if we took a look at Main Street, 500 yards east and west of Forbush Mill, and then 1,000 yards down Forbush Mill, and figured out how that all fits together, who owns what, and what the opportunities are for business and municipal uses, I think we'd be able to make much better decisions about how we might zone it and how we might encourage development in that area.
Yeah.
Pam, what's, since you're clicking on it, what's the size of lot 3 there? Yeah, that
That,
one. Yeah. How many
well,
acres is that?
this has been changed through the A&Rs, so.
Oh, yeah, because some of
um,
187 got,
Yeah,
but just
Why
as a
are
rough
these-
number.
5.44 acres.
So you can build on 20, you can build on 20% of it now, footprint, which would give you roughly 1 acre, so like 40,000 square feet of building.
Mhm.
Whereas I think when I was looking at their overlay plan, they were only talking about 5,000 square feet of business. So that's kind of what I was saying is, I think you still do get business when they do their residential mixed use, but you wouldn't get as much as if you fully utilized it as business.
You
Yeah, I
can't,
mean,
but you can't go vertically on that though? You wouldn't, it's total square footage, or would you be able to build?
I don't think that
levels?
was his plan. I think from what he showed is there might have been, there was like a pad up front that was gonna be like
Yeah,
like a convenience store type thing. And then he was talking about 1 or 2 businesses maybe, but I don't think he was talking about the entire first floor. I mean, if you look at I think it looked like, some of it maybe, but I don't,
yeah, he had a separate, it was a mixed use parcel, but the buildings were not mixed use. The buildings were
yeah,
separated on these conceptual plans. I don't know. He said he
Yeah,
looked
that was
at these
very early.
plans and that it wasn't really doable financially, so he had different, he had changed his ideas, but he hasn't
Yeah.
shared those yet.
Well, maybe if we work with them.
yeah. I just, like I understand, building business is difficult and, retail isn't the best place to be right now. But I just would hate to,
That-
I would hate to limit it by a lot by putting residential there. So I don't know. That's just my initial thinking, so I'm just saying I'm skeptical, is all.
Yeah, so that smaller building up front was the commercial, and these were all apartments in a
Right.
larger L-shaped, T-shaped building.
And I think I saw that small building was like 5,000. Maybe it was a multiple tenant building. I'm not sure.
Where does the
In any case,
constraint?
I think we're
those
getting into-
20%?
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds, sure.
Eric, where was that constraint? I think you said it was like 20% of the lot
Oh,
size could be used as,
for business, you can build on 20% of the lot
that's what we have for our business zoning today.
currently. Yeah, so
That's
as
industrial. to me.
oh, maybe it's 10%. I don't know. Yeah, pull it up. But
Yeah.
for history, when the Kane property was going to have like a market basket and type development, it was originally 8% coverage, and that wasn't going to be enough for them. So they either needed that to be bigger, or I think they were trying to change the residential in the back of the Kane property to business in order to be able to have the coverage they needed. But now I think today with the expanded coverage that it would probably fit. I'm not sure. their well and stuff would still fit. But it's definitely like 5 to 8 years ago, we increased the coverage and it passed. I think it might have passed the same time that the overlay failed, the cottage overlay
No,
failed,
it,
which was,
it passed the year after, didn't it? Because
maybe.
one
It was close.
one year it failed, and then the next year it passed with no
Yeah.
issues.
it was
and are-
surprising to me, but
And so is the business, does the mixed use and the business use the same footprint? I thought mixed use might have given you a little bit more coverage.
yeah, you could have multiple pads in there. I
Yeah.
forget what the mixed use allows.
Mixed use doesn't cover that area though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'd have to be added.
We'd have to change it, yeah.
And actually, if I remember when we did the mixed use, another lifetime ago, it was, we didn't put hard numbers in there. We kind of just said a mix of business and residential, just so we weren't beholden to some hard line number.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I think the goal is that we, in addition to, so Forbush it seems like a prime candidate for the place that we start with first. We figure out what other sorts of zoning changes, bylaw changes that we're interested in for the upcoming year. And that brings us to our next item is election of officers. So I have chaired for over 2 years now, so it is time for someone else to step up and take the reins. Hopefully someone who has some ideas about where they want to move forward. Looking at you, Bob, you certainly seem to have some ideas on where you would like the board to train its fire this year. So I mean, I'm open to anyone who wants to step up, but I've done this for a couple of years now, so it's better that we rotate people through and get a variety of opinions from everybody.
Century Mill hit you that hard?
I can take it.
I'm sorry, I'm on the law committee dealing with this.
I agree. I think, I mean, Bob, I think you would be a great chairman of the planning board. You clearly have a lot of experience in this area, so.
And I'm highly opinionated, obviously.
Yeah, you need opinions. We'll keep you in check.
So yeah, Bob, if that's something you're interested in, I will make. a
I'm not,
motion.
but it sounds like the short straw is coming my way.
Okay.
Well, if you don't want to do it,
Yeah, I mean, we want, people to, I know, I mean, Jim's not here tonight, but I know kind of at the last time he sort of expressed interest in not doing it. So, open to anyone, obviously. Eric, you obviously have done it in the past, and
yeah, I've done a few years. I'm
Yep.
still burnt out with it. It's not a fun job.
And then, we'd want to, have a vice chair also that, again, we, like Austin, if you were interested in being the vice chair, that means that you can kind of learn for the year and cover when needed. But that's a good way to, if you're ever interested in chairing, is to, get some more experience and then eventually step into the role. So, if that's something you're interested in, let us know. Otherwise, I will vice chair just to fill in when needed, but
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's definitely something I would be interested in. It's just a matter of timing.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, if there's an assistant to the vice chair, quoting the office here,
Yeah.
it's something I would be amenable to. I think, to thinking about, but we are having a third kid in August.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
congrats.
so
Got your
thank
hands
you very
full.
much.
Yeah.
So it's just something that I just have to think about a little bit, but I'm open to the idea in the future.
Well, with that in mind, I nominate Robert Romer to be the chair of the planning board.
Second,
Third,
everybody
Michael
stood
Gore?
back.
Aye.
Robert Romer.
I guess.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
I
Michael Lau.
Aye. And
And
Mr. Gore, you're going to be vice chair?
I will be vice chair.
I require a mentor in this role.
So someone just nominate me.
Well,
Okay, I'll nominate Michael Gore as vice chair of the planning
I'll
board.
second that.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
I,
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Michael Lau.
Aye.
Okay. So Bob, it's your meeting. I don't know if you have the agenda in front of you. But so I mean, so I guess like our plan is, and again, I'll turn it over to you in a second, but just, we spend the next few meetings deciding what where the board wants to go for the year. And I think that'll be a good use. I mean, I'm positive about how town meeting went this last time, and I think we were able to make our case, to them, and nothing was that close. So that was all good news. And I feel like we can be emboldened as a board to do bigger things, over the coming years with all this. So
Yeah, I'm just very happy. Thank you, Mike, for pulling that together. It was one of the more positive town meetings, despite a little financial issue here and there.
Yep. No, I mean, thanks to everyone, especially, Pam, for putting everything together. I mean, that it went well, and I think we were able to, we made our case, and I think that's what ultimately what we wanted to do.
yeah, great job, everybody.
Yeah, it was nice. I forget the year that we first introduced it, but it's been like an 8-year odyssey. So
Yeah.
it's nice to now let's see if we can
Have it
actually
done.
get it used.
I know, that'd be great.
Okay. So at this point, we're into Tadmore development. I think we've
I think we
had a
covered
fair
it.
amount of that discussion already, have we not?
Yeah. That's all I just wanted to bring it up. You started bringing it up initially. It's just thinking about that area as a whole and not jumping right into adding it to the overlay and throwing residential in if it doesn't make sense,
Okay, and if Pam can't find it, I have on my computer, and I'm sure I can find it on the shared drive in the town, the focused area review. And again, it was very much focused at the time on finding a new home for the DPW and some other things. But
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. If like, I know you guys with the master plan did some looking into that, and adding a $1 million building isn't probably anything anybody wants to do, but like, just like, what are the options of relocating that?
yeah, and
if
part
it's
of it
done-
was land banking. I mean, maybe we can't afford it now, but let's make sure that that's on the radar, going into any development in that area.
One quick question about about that new building construction. So is that paid off if the town were to build a new DPW? Is that paid off, over a certain number of years, just like a mortgage would? Okay,
They would
so
Yeah,
it's-
have
bond
to
it.
be a bond issue, yeah.
gotcha. So, but if that were brought up at the same time as some of this economic development, it would be a way to,
Yeah, I remember
to
at one
maybe
point
offset it.
to the EDC, like maybe it was like 10 years ago, some realtor came in talking about like trading that corner lot and like putting whatever value that corner lot was, putting it towards building a DPW somewhere else, so some type of
Corner
I
on
mean, it probably
Forbush.
what, say it again?
The corner on
Forbush.
Forbush.
Yeah. Like, like they would get that lot, and in return, they would put whatever value towards building a DPW somewhere else. It probably wouldn't cover the whole cost, but things like that is a potential, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you combine that land with the land adjacent to it with Tadmore currently owns.
Right,
It's
exactly.
a pretty healthy
Yeah, exactly.
piece of property with good access and would
Great
make,
visibility.
yeah. And it would allow access without tying up the roundabout forever.
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
saying. That's we just want to look at that whole area and figure out what we can do to best utilize it.
Well, and I think the roundabout is I'm really hopeful that's gonna help that intersection, which is
Yeah,
a
it should
death
help.
trap. So they,
Eventually,
yeah, right. I mean, once it's done, I think things should flow a lot more smoothly. But
Yeah.
and maybe 117 backs up a little bit, but at least on the Forbush Mill side, you're not like taking your life into your own hands if you're trying to cross over to Green or make a left onto 117. So I think that'll be helpful for the flow if we were to have more business, down on Forbush.
Like
A lot more
clear,
palatable to them.
yeah, clear egress and ingress from that
Yeah.
pizza place, so.
Yep.
in retrospect,
That's-
I'm very happy we didn't go with lights there.
I am too. Yeah. We'll see once it's done, but I'm hopeful that it'll make things go a lot more smoothly there.
Okay, a little update on Mass Historical and the East End Historic District, Pam.
This
Where
is
does that
just-
stand?
The National Park Service approved the town's application to create a historic district in the East End area, which covers Bolton Spring Farms and the surrounding area. And they issued an approval letter about a month ago, so I just wanted to share that information with you.
Where, I seem to recall being on either a Zoom or a call about that, and there was resistance from a couple of our neighbors. Was there some implication of that?
I don't know that answer.
Okay, but they've approved it as shown there then.
Yes, this is the approved map. Bob Bush sent this over to us for our information because
So
the
actually,
National Park Service hasn't updated their own GIS mapping
I
yet.
know one of the residents in lot 3 there, and he was just worried about what it would mean for updating his house, and he was worried about having any kind of onerous overlay on top of his land.
And I think the Historic Commission, at least in that call, made it clear that there would not be any implication.
No, the only thing that we have in a local jurisdictional rule would be the demolition of structures,
Right,
which is a 6-month delay.
but that's true townwide, isn't it?
Yes, for anything on the registry.
Right.
That's the only additional protection that the town has in Bolton.
Yep. And regretfully, that basically has been a 6-month delay, and it generally happened anyway. Okay,
What is
Item
lot V?
7.
What is sorry, Bob, what is lot V here? Is that part of Bolton Spring Farm? Down left?
Yeah.
Left.
Oh,
Is that part?
yes.
That's part of Bolton Spring Farm.
yeah, that's the Stevenson's Orchards.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And it has been for a long time. Hanging over my desk is an 1880 picture of that whole area, and it hasn't changed. Okay, review of minutes and approval. Has anybody taken a look at them? March 12th minutes. Having heard no discussion, do I hear a motion for approval?
I will make a motion to approve the planning board minutes from Wednesday, March 12th, 2025.
And a
Second.
second? Thank you.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
I,
Michael Lau.
Aye.
And does anybody have anything else? And if not, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Did I hear Scuttle about the International wanting to rezone the Twin Springs property?
I haven't.
No? Okay.
They
Like
were
Scuttle
talking about
Scuttle.
constructing some lodging on the property, which would be through special permit application to the select board, but we haven't received anything yet.
Is Twin Springs, that's all part of the same limited recreational, whatever, land. It's under the same zoning as.
Yeah, I
international?
believe it's all part of that limited business recreational area.
Yeah,
Can that be anything other than a golf course?
Not really, no. Everything, there are a few accessory uses allowed, but basically it's zoned to be a golf course.
is lodging
And
an
hiking
accessory-
trails and that type of thing.
Is lodging an accessory use?
It is listed as an allowed accessory use by special permit through the select board.
I mean, they have it on at the International right now. They have a hotel or whatever there, so.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do-
I'm
do
just
they-
curious.
do
I
they-
I'd heard something, but
Just out of curiosity, does the International pay the town, do they pay local taxes? Or are they somehow exempt because they're recreational or something?
I can check. I'm not sure what their taxes are.
No, they definitely pay. I forget the number.
Yeah, they pay
Yeah.
taxes.
I just don't know what it is.
They're definitely not a nonprofit.
No,
They might have you can put a golf course under 61A status.
does it have to be public then?
yeah, but like a municipal course or something, right?
Yeah.
That was it.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for adjournment
I will make a
Motion.
motion to adjourn.
and a second?
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Pam,
Thank you.
I look forward to another year.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you.
All right,
you.
bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.